Hello, everybody, and welcome to a bonus episode of the World of Eora. I'm your host, Eric, aka Gingerino, and thank you so much for joining me on this smaller little bit of lore that we get from the World of Eora. That is the fantasy setting that we see in Pillars of Eternity 1 and 2, as well as Obsidian Entertainment's upcoming release, Avowed, all of which share the same fantasy world we're talking about here. In today's episode, I'm going to cover a little bit of supplementary lore that has to do with a couple of other episodes I've released recently. So I've released 2 episodes on the Huana peoples, the Huana culture that we see in Pillars of Eternity 2, DEADFIRE. Now, it's a huge topic. There's so much to talk about with the Huana people. They're a massive faction. They're a massive culture. They're well thought out, well written by people over Obsidian, at least in my opinion. And so I can't cover everything. Even in 2 episodes, I couldn't cover everything. I went through it as much as I could, but also being kind of slow but fast, whatever. You can go listen to it if you're interested in learning more about the Huana. It might especially help in making sense of today's episode. But today, I'm going to cover some of the stuff that I didn't mention on those episodes. And specifically, I'm going to be talking about the Watershapers Guild.
I'm curious. What exactly did you find there?
So rather than read from my handy-dandy, physically in front of me actual book about this stuff, I'm actually going to be going to the Pillars of Eternity fandom page because it takes separate pieces of information and really puts it together in one spot for me, which helps a lot for something like this, but also is just easier to work through as I read it. Before I talk about what the Watershapers Guild is, I should probably tell you what Watershaping is. And if you've watched Avatar, The Last Airbender, like if you've watched any of that cartoon, then you kind of already know what it is. It's basically like that with water, but obviously it's got its own unique twist on how it's being done within this world. Watershaping is the oldest known tradition of the Huana and is widely considered the touchstone of their achievements, using a combination of stances and mindsets, collectively referred to as quote-unquote forms. Specially trained Huana are able to mold water like clay, easing it into semi-permanent shapes with hand and thought. The breadth of possible applications for water shaping in the DEADFIRE is virtually endless, from the steering of tides to the taming of hurricanes and the sinking of enemy fleets. So there's the blurb on pillarsofeternity.fandom.com/wiki/watershaping. I didn't need to give you that whole thing, but there it is. Anyway, so that's what watershaping is. Essentially, it's this magical power that you have within yourself and in your mind to control water in some way, shape, or form. And they gave some examples of why it's useful. Steering of tides. So let's say you're trying to get a boat from one island to another. The wind's not favorable. What do? Well, you make currents within the water so your boat just goes along that. That's a good way of doing it. Taming of hurricanes. If you're an island culture of people, and every year you have to worry about monsoon season and all this kind of stuff, which can threaten your very lives and the people that you hold dear, it really comes in handy if you can just get a bunch of people on the shore to hold it back or to dampen its destruction, And lastly, the sinking of enemy fleets. You can use it as an offensive thing, because how many times do ships get lost at sea and completely destroyed by ocean waves and storms? Well, if you can control some of that, you got a pretty good weapon on your hand. Hard for them to invade your island when they can't get to your island in the first place. So water shaping is an important part to the Huana culture. So as I mentioned in my main episodes about the Huana people, they don't write down a lot of things about their culture. They mainly pass it through oral tradition. And even the idea and concept of how water shaping became important to them as a people group is through the telling of myths and legends. So how water shaping entered into the Huana culture is told this way. Basically, that there were 3 dudes, or dudettes, whatever, were very, very devout followers of their god Ngati, goddess of the ocean. And to reward them, Ngati invited these 3 very devout followers to her domain in the ocean to dine with her. And they went and they had a party and blah, 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 blah. And then she gave them gifts to express her gratitude for their years of long service. And the gift is essentially water shaping. So I'll read this next paragraph to you so you can kind of get the whole mythology side of it. To Dumu, the eldest, she gave the protection of the islands. He and his descendants would safeguard the archipelago, its land, and its seas from outsiders whose hearts were cold. So Dumu, the eldest, is going to protect the very archipelago, the area that they live in itself. To Tapua the Wise, Ngati gave the protection of the tribes, making him vow to uphold and defend the traditions of her chosen people. To the youngest, Tokima, the Recaller, she gave the protection of the Adra. The health of the Deadfire, she explained, was its Adra. For so long as Adra remained, the homeland of the Huana would thrive, and their prosperity would grow through the generations. So that second one, Tupua the Wise, is in charge of protecting the people, and the last one, Tokima the Recaller, is charged with protecting the Adra, which is a unique resource that exists within this world's lore. It basically has the power to transfer souls through it. That's what Adra can do, and it's very, very important to the Huana peoples because you can find it in the Deadfire Archipelago. So that's the mythology behind it, that Ngati gave these three people the power to do these things, and the power that she gave them is the ability to move and shape water. So they're using the ability to move and shape water to protect the area of the Deadfire Archipelago, the people of the Deadfire Archipelago, and the Adra of the Deadfire Archipelago. And for as long as they continue to protect these things and uphold the values that she gives them, they will continue to have this power. And for a very long time, apparently, the people of the Huana and the people of the Deadfire Archipelago, the Huana, actually did do this. They had water-shaping abilities. They would use it to protect their islands from hurricanes and storms. They would use it to protect their people from invaders. And they would use it to steer people away from Adra to keep it protected because it's important to them. But in recent times, when you're actually playing the game of Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire, the crown that is the monarchy that is in the city of Nekataka, which is the kind of like the golden jewel of the Deadfire Archipelago at this time, became more friendly with foreigners and people from outside the Deadfire Archipelago. And as a result, the power of Watershapers starts to decline quickly. That is, people who could normally Watershape all of a sudden are losing their ability to do that very well. And so it lends some credibility to the actual mythology. I should point out that, in this world, a lot of this mythologies and legends end up being kind of real and kind of true. Whether or not it's literally exactly that, though, is kind of up in question. But the magic does exist in this world, and gods do exist in this world. That's not up for contention. How these things actually worked out, we don't know the details of, but there's a lot of truth behind what's going on. And so here you have Nekataka, the seat of authority for the Huana peoples, being friendly to outsiders who are, by the way, mining Adra out of their place and destroying the peoples and destroying the land, doing the things that Ngati charged them with protecting. Now they're not protecting it anymore. All of a sudden, Watershaping starts to take a huge dive. There is one person who is not letting it stand, and that's a person named Periki. Periki is the Watershapers Guildmaster. Watershapers Guild is exactly what it sounds like. It's an official group of people that have formed a guild, and they're all about watershaping. That's where all the Watershapers go. That's where you go to learn about watershaping, so you can become a stormcaller or something like that. It's really important to the people of the Huana tribes. It's kind of like a church, but not really. But it's very, very tied to their theology and how they look at life. But now, so that's what watershaping is and what's going on. But what is watershaping itself? How does it actually work? I mentioned the quote-unquote forms that exist for watershaping, and there are 3 main forms of watershaping and 1 bonus to it. So if you want to learn to watershape, here's what you got to do. So Periki, as I mentioned, the Watershapers Guild Master, organized the lore of Ngati's talent into a series of postures and meditations called the 4 Forms of Watershaping. He's a pretty straightforward guy, this man. Now, he is teaching these 4 forms as something that is essential to be able to water shape, and you learn more about them as you do side quests in the Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire game that I don't want to spoil for you. But learning about what those 4 forms are as such. The first form, the form of grief, is the easiest form to know. It basically teaches that the body has limitations. There's only so much that you can learn. It's a hard lesson for you to learn too. And it comes from this idea that no matter how hard you try as a water shaper, you have a physical body. There is parts of you that is not water. You are not mutable like water is. Or immutable? No, mutable. You are not able to be muted like water is. You have your physical body and it's constrained the way it is. So this is the form of grief. It's recognizing the difference between a physical static object and something that can move and be shaped like water. The next form, however, is called the form of hope. This form kind of reckons with the fact that even though you are a static physical form, your body is mostly made up of water. And so you have a deep connection to water, but you do still have that physical body that you are limited to. But it also tells you about the power of water. You know, the fact that your body, A, is even able to be run by it, but also B, things like even the mountains can get carved in half by a stream of water over enough period of time. So it really talks about the power that water has. The next form is called the form of metamorphosis. And on the Wikipedia, it's described as water commands its vessel, and the vessel can be shaped as surely as the mountain. Reading in the book, there's a little bit more going on here. It says students should be aware that their internal water, which is, the water in your body, its presence and its power. Blood ebbs and flows by the tide of our internal moon. The brain floats in an enclosed tide pool. The gut is a cistern, its walls permeable, turning all that it touches into water. Though our physical limitations cannot be overcome, here we see that the struggle is already won. We are water, and water is us. Anything that is water can be bent to our will. And so it's kind of, in my view of just reading it here and now, a mixture of the first two forms. It's like recognizing that you have limitations and being a body, that you are not water, but then also recognizing that water is inside of you and that water is powerful. You mix those two together and you undergo the form of metamorphosis. It's kind of like, it seems to go in stages. And so it's recognizing that you have a great power within you, and that actually you having a static form isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's just how you were made. And that now you, like, when you tap into the water that is within, you connect to the water within you, I guess. You can now connect to water and on a spiritual level, I guess. And now you can control it. The last form is called the form of transcendence. And it says in the guidebook that they can't really teach this form. It's something that happens when a student of Watershaping has to find this for themselves, really. The form of transcendence, an ancient legendary form that even Periki, the Watershapers Guildmaster, could not or did not commit to her scrolls. The power of the form of transcendence is like, it's the power to reshape the DEADFIRE itself. It's the ultimate power to completely control water. I would imagine that the form of transcendence is, you're at a point where you and the water are one. It's like an extension of who you are. It's like an extra muscle. You almost have the sensory with it, This is the form of transcendence. And so you have these four forms that kind of go increase in power level in succession as you go up through them, and you learn more about how to shape water. And so that's it. That's everything I have to talk about water shaping, what water shaping is and how it's useful, the myth of how water shaping actually came to be within the Huana culture, and then how the forms are written out, how it is that a student can learn and go through these different forms of grief, hope, metamorphosis, and transcendence to become a master water shaper. I hope that you found this little episode enticing and interesting. If it is a supplement to the Huana episodes that I've done before, or if it's such something that you were really into in the game, I hope you enjoyed it. So thanks for listening to today's really short bonus episode about the Watershapers and the Watershapers Guild from Pillars of 22 DEADFIRE. If you're into the lore of this world, then I hope you get into my full-length episodes on this stuff. If you want to email me, my email is worldofeora@gmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter @worldofeora. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this bonus episode. I'll see you guys next time.